Hello. This would be Kinship 101, Episode 3, Part 3. The focus, I want to talk a little bit about the county versus county. So, when we took custody of these children, they were Hocking County, CPS, Rockbridge, Ohio. We live in London, Madison County. As a pastor here in Madison County, I had some contacts in the Madison County CPS or Job and Family Services that I'd reached out to. That hey, we have these kids; they're being brought here, and my intent was to try to kind of connect Madison County to Hocking County and to try to kind of figure out how to get the resources we needed for these children. Once again, kinship care and foster care is two entirely different things. And for whatever reason, in foster care, this comes with resources and kind of money and stuff like that. But kinship kind of felt like, hey, these kids are your family, figure it out. Good luck. Probably the primary thing that how this touched our lives was these children were unvaccinated, and the middle child sickly and was tongue-tied and has been in and out of the hospital a couple of times since we had him. And we got custody, temporary safety care plan custody of these children in April of 22. But red tape and everything else, we didn't actually secure medical cards for these children until August of 22. We did through court and a whole bunch of resistance from the family. We were investigated on false claims by Madison County CPS, clearly false claims. The idea being, though, that when these claims are made, CPS is obligated to follow up on them, but once a claim that has been filed false and has been proven as false, then they will not investigate you over the same thing a second time. So there was 4 different claims that they tried to, bullcrap claims they tried to file against us. And the girl that came here, the lady that came here from Madison County CPS, jokingly told her, like, hey, we can just set a room up for you here and you can just live with us. It became ridiculous like that. Well, we got to do this, no harm, no foul. And had a decent relationship with the Madison County CPS person because of that. But it felt like, when we first took these children in, it felt like a wrestling match between Hocking County Job and Family Services and Madison County Job and Family Services as far as who's going to give us the resources for these children. And it also seems weird to us, like these children don't have an income, right? And so looking at our income to try to provide resources for them didn't make any sense. Like this is 3 new mouths added into our household. You'd think that we would qualify for more, but the work that the Queen and I both do, we don't qualify for food stamps, and it's just kind of been weird that, thankfully, once we secured the medical cards in April of 22, that's the benefit that they've let us keep. We also get a small stipend. I believe it's paid through Job and Family Services, but I think it was generated by Hocking. At any rate, that's enough to cover daycare for the 2 boys. The wife works daycare and gets a discount and takes the baby girl with her to work. And so, but the oldest is about to age out, and we're just not really sure how that's going to all work out, what we're going to do about that. But there's definitely a wrestling match between the 2 counties when we first took these kids in. We had a guardian ad litem appointed to them. Our guardian ad litem, who served on behalf of these children and kind of looks after their needs throughout kind of the court and process and everything, was wonderful and still keeps our name and number in her phone and has helped us with recent things as far as these parents were released. I'll get into that in a different episode. A couple other things I kind of felt like we needed to touch on early on in all this, which didn't make sense to us, is that these children were not listed as victims in their older brother Joshua's court case. So we had 2 separate court cases going on, and one was not supposed to influence the other, although we felt like it should. It didn't. So unpacking that just a little bit briefly for the end of this, my brother had a previous relationship with my first cousin. As a result of that relationship, they had 2 children. The oldest daughter is the one my brother caught his sex charges against for molesting her. The second of those two children from his first relationship with my first cousin was my nephew Joshua, the one that died. He had cerebral palsy. He was basically an adult toddler. He could eat. I'll tell you, when Joshua lived with my mom and dad while my brother was in prison, they had him in a position where he was almost walking. He had a little green button thing that it's I'm hungry. And he could hit it when he learned to hit it when he was hungry, and was communicating. And just declined. I mean, declined under my brother and his wife's care. Blatantly declined to the point of his death. Horrific, suffering death. These children should have been listed as victims in the crime that is their brother's death, but they were not. And so none of the things we're experiencing with them, which I may get into in the next episode, kind of the condition these kids are in when we took them in. And kind of the condition they're still in. And kind of how we've had to deal with that and the different helps that we've tried to find to alleviate some of that. They weren't listed as victims in the crime. And so we didn't get to speak into the trial concerning Joshua's death because these children weren't listed as victims in the crime. For whatever reason, my cousin, the mother of these children, and I might add, she had nothing to do with Joshua's life. Nothing at all. The only reason she was called into this and got to speak into this process is because my mother and my brother and his wife tried to have Joshua cremated. But because they had to reach out to the birth mother to approve that cremation, that's how she got to speak into this. And she's the one that offered them the Alford plea and allowed them, positioned them literally to get off scot-free for this crime. My brother and his wife did 1.5 years for the horrible suffering death of this child, my nephew Joshua. And the intricacies of that, the short version of that, I may get into another episode as far as more depth of how this played itself out. But the maximum for the 2 counts of failure to provide for a special needs individual was 5 years. And initially they were going to be put in for 5 years, but the judge didn't justify in his paperwork the entire 5-year sentence, and so they did 1.5 years. Time served and no post-release control. So the takeaway from this is if you live in one county and the children that you take custody of are in another county, you may have to work a little bit harder to get the resources that you need, because you can expect a little tension from one county to the other when you're trying to get things accomplished. We'll leave that there. So many more intricate parts of this, and I hope that my hope for this as you're watching these is that you pick up some useful information, or maybe some things that don't make sense to you start to make sense to you, and maybe help you kind of navigate the waters a little more easily than what we did when this unfolded for us. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.